Hi, this is Dara again, and this is the second part of a series that I'm doing called Post-Surgery Reflections, and I am reflecting on surgery I had. It's been 10 days now. I had breast reduction surgery, and this is from my perspective as a non-binary gender therapist. So some of the questions that I have received from folks has to do with, well, actually, let me just read it to you. Did the surgical change help with your dysphoria? And if so, how? So let me just explain for those of you who don't know, what this person's talking about is gender dysphoria. At least that's specifically what we're talking about in this situation. Dysphoria is distress, and in this case, it means that there is a level of distress that I have and actually had, now that I've had surgery, it's past tense, between my assigned gender at birth of female and my true gender identity, which is that of non-binary. And specifically, even though there's a couple other different ways I experience dysphoria, aka distress, when it comes to this, my chest has been a big part of that I didn't know it at the time, but ever since my early 20s, that's been over 20 years, that I've known that my chest did not fit who I was. And especially the last couple years when I've known that I am indeed not female but non-binary, I really knew that my chest did not fit who I was. And so I would say the answer is definitely yes. I would say I'm early on when it comes to knowing exactly how is this going to feel long term. But I will say just immediately, even the first day after my surgery, once I was able to see the results underneath the bandages and whatnot, I was just blown away. It was a dream come true. I can tell already that I have, let's just even talk about the physical relief that I feel. I've been wearing, before the surgery, for about 2.5 years, I've been wearing a sports binder because it just got too uncomfortable. I would have pain and discomfort in my shoulders, and even just standing up for more than an hour or so, like let's say I was at a concert or just being out and about running errands, just standing up for more than an hour. Even recently, leading up to the surgery, I noticed that I would just get really sore. It made it harder for me to be able to exercise in certain ways and exercise for the lengths of time that I wanted to exercise. So that in itself is already, I can already tell there's a relief. I just feel lighter. I feel like I can sit up properly and with a straight back, and it just feels really good. So that's a big benefit. Specifically when it comes to gender dysphoria, all I can say is that this feels right for Dara. I've said before that my non-binary identity, I feel like the best way I can describe it is that my gender identity is that of me, of Dara. And so this is going to feel and look different for somebody else who's non-binary. For myself, I definitely know that I didn't want top surgery, meaning I didn't want chest reconstruction, and I also didn't want a mastectomy. For like a couple days, I wondered if I wanted to take it far enough to have actually just a completely flat chest. Not that that was the option given to me in my surgery, but I was kind of like, oh, I wonder if I'm going to be happy just having smaller boobs. But it turns out that I am, and that's actually been a little bit of a surprise. I didn't know when it comes to my non-binary self what kind of chest I really actually wanted to have. I knew I didn't want what I did have, but what did I want to have? And so far, when I look in the mirror, like I can just, it's that feeling of seeing and it makes sense. Like I just can't believe how much it makes sense. It doesn't matter that I still have marker drawn all over my chest because the surgeon had to do that, and that there's still swelling and scarring. I can tell that this is the chest that makes sense for me. And specifically, if it has to do with my gender identity, then through puberty, I mean, I ended up going through puberty a little bit early, and I also developed larger than was suitable for my actual frame. So I feel like it really is a combination of both feeling right for me as my gender identity, but also just physically, just period. As a person, medically, it feels much better. And so I'm really looking forward in the future to when I'm able to, so when I've healed fully, I can figure out what kind of support do I want to wear. Is it going to be a sports bra? Is it going to be another type of sports binder? I'd really like to not feel so compressed around my chest. That's one thing that it's also uncomfortable if you aren't comfortable with your chest and you wear something to compress it, like a binder. That can feel better, but it also can feel worse in other ways because it just squeezes your rib cage and your skin and it gets itchy. And so I'm going to play around and see what kind of support I'm going to want to use. One thing I will say, and I knew this was going to happen, is that once I got the surgery, that I am definitely more aware than ever that my abdomen area needs work. And this is something that I've been trying to figure out with my doctor as to why I'm not losing weight in my abdomen. And so that is something that I'm going to really take seriously now, because I want to be able to have fully, from my neck to my waist, this area, my trunk, I just want it to look the way I want it to look. So that's not necessarily gender related. That's just Dara related. I want to have, both for health reasons, but also for physical appearance reasons. I want to wear, certain, tighter t-shirts and form-fitting outfits, and shirts and ties, and be able to not have so much muffin top around my waist. So I'm going to be focusing on that, probably not till January, because I'm still not supposed to overexert myself for 4 more weeks in terms of exercise, but at least I'm going to start researching and figuring out things. For one, I've mentioned this in the other video, I think I have like a trifecta of things I think I want to incorporate, which would be yoga, running, and weights, all of which I have done in the past, but it hasn't been easy because of the size of my chest. So I think that's going to make it even easier for me to now take my health and wellness to a new level. I wanted to mention, by the way, that I know I'm sharing a lot of personal information with you, and some of you are my clients, some of you are my friends, some of you are my family, some of you are strangers. I don't mind talking about this. I don't want anybody to think that you should be embarrassed or ashamed to talk about things like your boobs or your chest or whatever you call this part of your body, as well as other aspects of my health and wellness. I think this is a topic that people can be really shy to talk about, especially those who are trans and those who experience gender dysphoria. And so just trying to open up a line of dialogue. I know that this is, for some people, they feel really uncomfortable talking about things on this level, and that's totally cool. But just wanting to be able to let you know that this is something that I feel is important to address, and I have no embarrassment or shyness in sharing this because I think it's important. I wanted to double check my list of questions. Let's see, somebody also wanted to know emotional changes, like how do I feel about myself now? Like I said, well, actually, that does remind me, I feel like after this surgery that it's possible that how do I describe this as being non-binary? There's a feminine energy that I feel like I've been disconnected from for a while. My relationship with my masculine and feminine energy has been very confusing over the span of my lifetime, as I'm sure you can understand. And I feel like I'm finally going to get into balance as to what my actual feminine masculine energy combination is. I've been disconnected from my body for a long time because of how uncomfortable and how disconnected I felt from my chest, how much it didn't make sense for me. I feel like this has allowed me just to be able to actually just sink into my body and really then therefore be able to embrace and accept all of who I am. I know that sounds kind of deep, but I'm a deep person, and so I really like this kind of stuff. It's something I had heard happens a lot of times after trans-affirming surgeries, but I hadn't, obviously experienced it yet myself. And so this is just in the early stages of this. I have a feeling this is going to continue on in the coming days, where I'm going to just keep, without even trying, feel more of a sense of balance within myself. And also, somebody asked if, why would I maybe discourage someone from doing this as opposed to encouraging them? And so I would say it's, obviously a really individual decision. I know that there's people who are considering this who aren't trans or who don't have gender dysphoria, who also are thinking about getting this type of surgery. If you're uncomfortable with your chest, period, I would say, in terms of discouragement, I think a lot of it mostly has to do with actually getting surgery. Is this something that you can afford? Is it something your insurance will cover? If not, or if it does, can you also afford the extra expenses that go with it? Do you have someone that can care for you for a few days afterwards? Can you take off of work? Those would be the main things I would say are to keep into consideration. If your chest is something that you have thought about over time, on and off, as something that's really uncomfortable to you, and especially if you're interested as I'm talking about this and you're like, oh, I wonder what that would be like, that sounds really cool, that means some part of you is definitely curious and wants to explore it. So I would then say take the steps forward, such as visiting your physician, getting a referral to, I saw a plastic surgeon, to find out if this is something that can be covered under insurance or not. I ended up getting a mammogram, which confirmed the results, in which the insurance then was able to pay for it. Those are all things to take into consideration. And as you go through each step along the way, check in with yourself and ask yourself, am I getting more excited about this or interested in this? And it's okay if you're just nervous flat out, because that's going to happen no matter what. But every step of the way, you feel like you're thinking, maybe this is something I want to do, and you're feeling less and less hesitant. Pay attention to that. If for some reason you do feel a lot of hesitation coming up, and it isn't related to just getting surgery, maybe you have a partner in your life who is maybe having thoughts about how they would feel about you getting surgery. Well, obviously that's something to think about and talk about and work through. And I'll talk in a different video about how that has gone with me and my wife, with her permission. So yeah, that's how I feel now that I've gotten the surgery, and I definitely will update you at least maybe a month from now when it comes to that particular part, because I am still healing and there's still things that are going to shift and change, but I can already tell this makes a lot of sense for me, and I'm really, really glad I did it. Thanks for your questions. This is great. Put some more questions in this comments area if you have any more about my gender dysphoria and how this has helped and things like that. And if you want to watch part 1 of the other video, I'll be sure to put a link for that as well. So I'll be back again soon with another post-surgery reflection. Take care.